Hey guys, it's Sheriden again, and I'm bringing you a guide to the final boss, Warlord Kephess, found within the new explosive conflict operation. This is a more challenging fight, and you'll have to make your way through 4 different phases. I'll explain the fight from beginning to end, and try to provide you with all the information you'll need to beat the encounter, as well as any tips I might have to help you accomplish this task. Phase 1. At the start of the fight, you'll face 3 champion mobs named Imperial Siege Droids, as well as 1 giant robot boss called Warstrider Battlewalker. Warlord Kephess is chilling inside the robot for the time being. You should kill each of the 3 mobs one by one, without using any cooldowns whatsoever, as you'll be needing them in a minute. The droids cast an ability named Calibrating Shot, which stacks a buff on them, giving additional damage, accuracy, and even decreases your DPS done to them. Therefore, you should interrupt all 3 of them as much as possible to help make this phase pass quickly and easily. The story mode is more forgiving with this mechanic compared to the hard mode version, but you should still do it for good practice. While you're busy with the droids, the Warstrider robot will fire a large frontal AoE towards a certain angle from where it sits. You'll be able to identify where it's going to hit by looking up at the robot and seeing where its guns are pointing. When they turn blue, he's about to fire, so it's time to move your ass out of the way. There is actually a set pattern of when and where the Warstrider will fire, so after a few goes you'll soon remember it and be able to position yourselves a bit better. Once the last droid goes down, an intermediate phase will begin. This intermediate phase will repeat itself multiple times, and it plays a large role in the fight. Once the Imperial droid dies, a single mob will spawn named Baradium Bomber. He'll have a large explosion icon over his head. He's about to suicide and blow up within your raid, so it's a DPS race to kill him before the time runs out and he explodes. All of your DPS will need to use their cooldowns if you're going to make it in time. You want to open fire the second it spawns, or else risk being too slow. By killing the bomber before he blows up, you'll be able to gain his explosives. When it dies, 1 player will gain them, and you'll be able to identify this by the exact same mark as the bomber had before. The player with the mark should run right under the Warstrider, so a little action sequence can occur. Once complete, the Warstrider will drop to its knees and you'll finally be able to open fire on it. You'll need to get as much damage as possible on the Warstrider while it's down on its knees. Don't stop until it's got back up. Your raid should be able to bring the boss to at least 70 or 60% in the first damaging phase. If you can't manage this, then your DPS are not up to scratch and will either have to get more gear or you'll have to check up on their rotations and talents. If you fail to kill the bomber before he explodes, the fight won't end. However, your chances of completing the encounter will be lowered. You will get more bombers at the final phase to make up for any failed attempts you've missed, but obviously all your energy pools will be in jeopardy by then, so you should aim to get every single one to be a success. Once the Warstrider gets back up, phase 2 will start. In this phase, a group of about 6 strong mobs will spawn with a shield around them. The shield will reflect damage dealt, so if you use AoE, expect to die quickly. Your DPS should single target the specific mob named Trandoshan Warrior, as he is the one that is providing the shield. As soon as he dies, the shield will drop, and you can start to AoE down the other mobs. 2 more additional groups will spawn at different locations that act exactly like the first one. Obviously each group of ads should be dead before the following one spawns. Your tank will need to be quick at picking up the warrior to ensure the mobs stick at one spot for the DPS to deal with. Your healers may get aggro from the smaller mobs, so make sure you pick them up once they get loose. After the last mob from the 3rd group dies, you'll enter the intermediate phase for the 2nd time. As usual, kill the bomber as soon as possible. Bring the Warstrider down and nuke it again. As soon as he gets back up, phase 3 will start. 2 new champion ads will drop into the fight named Pulsar Power Droids. All players must stack inside the hitbox of a droid found to the right of the boss, while avoiding the other droid, which will have a large purple AoE circle around it. You'll need to stand inside of the droid, or else he will randomly rail shot someone. They hit for around 10k health and can easily lead to deaths. Admittedly, when we were attempting this, we didn't quite realise this mechanic at the time, and we still managed to kill the boss without stacking, but I definitely don't recommend doing that. After a few moments, a warning will pop up saying the pulsar droids are reversing their circuits. This is the indication that your raid needs to switch to the opposite droid instead. The droids will then switch their jobs, and this will continue until both die. When the final droid goes down, the intermediate phase will occur for the 3rd time. This phase will repeat itself until you kill the Warstrider robot. Not only this, but you'll also have to pick up and tank Warlord Kephess as well, since he'll have jumped out of the robot when the last pulsar droid dies. If you fail to kill the bomber quickly enough, another one will continue to spawn until you get it right. However, you won't have forever to do this, as the Warstrider has its own enrage timer. When the Warstrider is destroyed, Phase 4 will begin. Warlord Kephess will periodically jump into the air and crash down to a specific spot which can be identified by a red circle mark on the ground. No one should stand in it or even close to it, since its damaging area is much bigger than the mark indicates. Once you drop his health to about 60%, he'll begin casting the ability Gift of the Masters. A large purple circle will surround him, which indicates the blast radius of this AoE attack. Everyone needs to run out as quickly as possible, or else risk taking massive damage. Once this ability ends, he will enter his final stage. At this point, he will start to cast purple circles under the current tank. These circles deal damage to those stood inside, so it's important that your raid stays out of them, and that they are dropped out of the way of the raid. To deal with this, you'll want your off-tank to taunt the boss once he begins casting Breath of the Masters. This will happen shortly after he knocks his current tank backwards, so you can be prepared for it. The previous tank should get quickly up off the floor and move away from the raid. When the boss's cast is finished, purple circles will start appearing under the previous tank's feet. If they have moved quickly, then they'll be out the way of the raid. At the same time, the off-tank will take some spike damage when the cast is finished, so it's another reason why it's important to switch before the cast ends. This will repeat about every 15 seconds, so your tanks will be switching and taunting off each other very often. Tanks should be careful to not be knocked back into the purple circle, which was dropped earlier. You will need to kill him before you run out of room to maneuver, or before he enrages. If your tanks die, just try to kite him as much as possible till he goes down. That's it for this guide. If you found these guides helpful, then please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe for future videos. I appreciate any feedback and comments you guys leave. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.